Hey, welcome to Hard Money by Delta Harbour Assets. You want to call our host anytime. My pal Darren Long is sitting right beside me. 1-888-335-8645. Again, 1-888-335-8645. It is deltaharbor.com. That is harbor with a U, deltaharbor.com. We're going to be talking about all kinds of hard assets on the show as we begin here. Yes, gold and silver. Yes, we're talking cars. We're talking other assets. We're going to cover it throughout the week. And you want to listen in for this entire hour. You're going to learn something, and hopefully you're going to reach out and contact and talk to Darren and his crew and learn a lot more and, bolster your portfolio if you haven't done so yet. That is why we're here on Hard Money, to do exactly that. Darren, good to talk to you, pal. We've known each other for years, and really happy to kick this show off, Hard Money, on News Talk Sauga 960. And we got a lot of stuff to talk about in the next coming weeks and months and so forth. So what's going on, pal? How are you?
I'm well, John, and I want to obviously say thanks for the nice introduction. It's great to be back on air again. Obviously, we have a lot to talk about. There's a lot happening in the marketplace right now, and we're here to make people money. This is the whole premise of why we're doing this show called Hard Money by Delta Harbour Assets. And it is a great feeling to be back on air, to be with a new station, Sauga 960. We'll be sending this up into the podcast universe, of course, into our YouTube channel, all over the place. We'll be able to get this. We're going to talk hard assets. Of course, our primary hard assets that we're going to discuss are gold and silver. It's where our expertise lies. We're going to have a ton of expert analysis on with respect to other types of hard assets. We're going to be talking about real estate. We're not going to shy away from the tough questions, certainly not now. Well, the market gets continually more frothy at what a lot of people are calling the tops of those markets. Gold and silver, however, represent very undervalued assets at this time. This week, we're going to start with a show about gold and silver. It's what they call God's money, and it's been around for a long time. And obviously, we want to focus on what we think is the best asset class in the hard asset category. And we're going to start with gold and silver. We'll go into other areas as the weeks progress with lots of expert analysis. We're going to have a ton of great guests come on to the show. And we're very happy to be here with Sauga 960. There are a lot of really strong personalities on the station, and we want to thank them for having us. It's going to be an exciting time. And John, it feels good to be back on air with you, buddy. It's been a while.
It feels so good, man. It's been a few years, and I just love these words, hard assets and gold and silver. It just reminds me of shows we've done in the past. By the way, reaching out anytime to Darren and his crew at Delta Harbour, very simple, 1-888-335-8645, deltaharbor.com. Again, you're going to get it eventually. I don't have to say it anymore, but harbor with the U, because it is all about you when it comes to hard assets. And, what often comes on the tail of the discussion of gold and silver is the fundamentals, the 101 of gold and silver, Darren. I think that's probably a good place to start on this show today. Tell us about it. Give our listeners what that all means about fundamentals and the 101 with gold and silver.
Well, there's no mistaking gold and silver. People have preconceived notions about it. They either understand gold and silver as a jewelry, they may understand it as a monetary thing, they may own it, but they've heard about it no matter what. Where we go, no matter who we've talked to, everybody knows about gold and silver. They have, again, preconceived notions about it, but very few people know how well it's performed as an asset category. It's done head and heels more so for people's wealth than a ton of the paper market. And if we look at it, I got into this market back in 2004, and John, you and I were on the air elsewhere, and we were doing another show at that time. And that is an incredible journey because few people realize what the value of gold and silver was back then. When I entered the marketplace back then, gold was trading at around 350 an ounce, and silver was trading around just under around $4 an ounce. And I look back at the journey that we've taken so far, and basically this 101 has brought us about 390% higher in gold and about 550% higher in silver. And both metals since 2004 have averaged well over 10% per year cumulatively. And that is in and of itself amazing, considering how few people actually know about them as investments, how to buy them, how to hold them. So I thought today, why not introduce a few fundamentals, talk about the idea of owning gold and silver. We know logistics. We know how to get those into people's portfolio and to keep them liquid, to buy and sell by a phone call, to be able to own physical assets, keep them at home, store them, put them in your TFSA, RSPs. We'll talk about all that stuff. But we've been working with, basically every facet of type of investor, blue collar, white collar, moms, dads, dentists, lawyers, HVAC guys, small businesses, corporations. And along the entire journey, what we've realized is that people need to get reacquainted with their wealth. That we have found out more often than not, people along this journey have stopped recognizing what the true value of wealth is, and they've become passive about their own wealth. They don't know where their money is. We're going to talk about that later in the show because it's so important. I got a great example that I brought with me for this week. But when you're looking at asset classes like gold and silver as hard assets, they have a place in everyone's portfolio. Every single individual that has money, disposable income to spend, to invest, should be protecting their wealth and using gold and silver as insurance. And when you think about it, 90% of the marketplace is invested in other type of papers. They're invested in stocks, bonds. They have cash positions. Right now with COVID in the last year and a half, cash positions in the bank are the highest they've been in a decade, probably more than that. Savings rates have jumped. Yet we're going to talk about an article later in the show from Global that's talking about how many Canadians are actually close to insolvency. It's insanity right now. And we have to learn to protect our wealth, to get back to the things that we did a long time ago, the things that have lasted for thousands of years. And those are hard assets. These are tangible wealth categories, real estate, precious metals, collectible things that accrue value over long periods of time. So, we got 70 million plus investors in the US and Canada. Let's throw this show out there to everyone listening, and let's hope you can get a little tiny bit of what we're talking about so that they can experience that success. And we'll talk about more of it as the show progresses.
And again, to reach out anytime to Darren and his team, if only for a conversation, get acquainted if you're not acquainted with these type of hard assets, be it silver and gold. Really simple, 1-888-335-8645, deltaharbor.com, harbor with the U. Got a couple minutes before we got to take our first break, Darren, but I know this from working with you for so many years. Everybody sees the gold numbers on TV and the ticker, what it's trading, the highs and lows. But silver, that is your bailiwick. You love that metal. So we're going to talk about both metals in the next couple segments of the show. But I know you want to start off by getting into silver because I know that's your favorite. I've known you long enough to know that.
Silver is the most undervalued asset in the face of the earth. And there are very few commodities, let alone hard asset commodities, that are half the value they were at their last major peak. And silver is one of them. It's half the value it was at its 1980 high. And something's wrong with that picture. So we're going to spend some time talking about the four major fundamentals that drive these markets in metals. We're going to pick on silver because listeners should know that although they're probably knowledgeable about gold a little more than they are silver, they've got an opportunity of a lifetime in silver. It can be held physically. We do this for people. We want to put it in your portfolios, TFSAs, RSPs. You can take it home. You can store it. There's a multitude of ways you can own physical silver. And when we do come back from break, John, let's pick on silver a little bit, talk about the fundamentals of that market.
Would love to. We're going to tell you where you're going to find silver as well. It will surprise you where in your everyday life this metal is used, and that's why it's so valuable. But we'll take a short break here. You want to reach out to Darren, do so. And it is 1-888-335-8645, Delta Harbor, harbor with a U, deltaharbor.com. This is Hard Money on News Talk Sauga 960. And welcome back to Hard Money with Delta Harbour Assets. Darren Long is here, reaching out anytime. Do it. Have a conversation. Get educated at least about hard assets, be it silver, gold, or many other ones we'll discuss in the coming weeks of the show. Really simple, guys. It's 1-888-335-8645, deltaharbor.com. We are focusing this week on our debut show, Darren, about silver and gold, and we'll get to gold. Everybody knows gold. They see it on the TV. They talk about it, but silver, that's that undervalued asset that so many people should have as part of their hard asset portfolio. It's a wonderful metal, and it's used in so many things, which I know you'll get to as well, but it's also your personal favorite. Talk a little bit about it and help people can attain some more silver in their portfolio, Darren.
Well, as we said before break, John, I mean, it's a simple metal. Yeah. It is not hard to understand. It's been around for thousands of years, like gold. It's had a monetary value in the past. It's cyclical in the sense that these markets do come from time to time. The last major bull market we had in gold and silver was back in the 70s. It's here again, and a lot of the same reasons and fundamentals at work right now. But I look at the value of silver in commodity terms, not from, the fear of missing out terms or the very top of a market, or, where is the next best thing, or what did Uncle Pete say about the next great stock. I look at it in commodity terms, and that fundamentally is how I made the decision to become part of this market, to get people involved in silver. And what I want to know was, did the price accurately reflect the true fundamental value? And what we mean by that is to say, is the price at, under, or over its anticipated fair market value? And when we look at silver and gold, we determined very quickly and easily through the fundamental analysis that we use that both metals are undervalued, but silver has yet to reach its all-time high that it hit back in 1980 of $52 an ounce. And as we speak right now, the paper price of silver is trading at less than half of that in the US dollar terms in the markets worldwide. So when we look at that, we want to think about that in terms of bringing true value to an investor. And that for me is just, it reeks of true value, because what you're getting is a commodity that's been bled to death in terms of its physical presence. It's been taken away from every major store pile in the world. And we haven't had a significant store of silver since around 2005, which was when the US Mint sold the last of its major store pile for making its US Silver Eagle coins. And we make it here at home, the Royal Canadian Mint. There's no mistaking the coin when you see it. It's called the Maple Leaf coin. And of course, silver comes in bar and coin form, and also in collectible form, numismatics, if you will, which we don't deal in. But in the bullion form, it's an undervalued asset. And it's so undervalued right now that if you look at how much has been used, and John, you alluded to the fact that the usages have exploded in the time since I've known you even. We've gone from a metal which was used predominantly in, let's say, jewelry, photography, investment, and coinage, and investment was predominantly all paper, to a metal which is used in hundreds of applications worldwide. In fact, it's used in so many applications right now that it is the metal which currently holds the most patents pending of any precious or base metal in the world. Wow. And so when you look at silver and where it's used, you can actually make a case that the world cannot survive or exist as it does right now without this metal. Now, we can't make that argument about gold, but central banks hold gold because they still choose to hold it as a monetary asset, and it still to them has a monetary value. Silver has gone by the way over the last couple of decades, and we've gotten away from those simple things. So the reality is that this condition of consumption exceeding production, which it has for the last 20 years, has basically meant that we've gone through a huge evolution of demand for silver. And now it's in everything. Now it's in all the electronics we use, every cell phone that we use, every single laptop, computer, desktop, TV. It's in cars, it's in our appliances, it's in clothing, wood preservation, bearings, it's in catalysts. And that's not even touching on the biggest one of all in the next 10 years, which is solar demand. It's in the batteries we use for electric cars. And, if we look at solar demand alone, how many countries are really developing solar programs? Tons of them now. We're way behind in the development of solar technology in Canada and the US. We have whole countries moving to solar programs that are looking to take whole cities and onboard them with solar programs. Every single solar panel has a whack of silver in it. And that list of where we're using silver goes on and on and on and on. And the other precious metals, gold, platinum, palladium, rhodium, molybdenum, all kinds of them, they are way higher in price, astronomically higher in price compared to silver. Silver's $25. I mean, US dollar value, of course, because metals trade in US dollars, $25. So you can get an ounce of silver in Canadian dollars for under $40. I mean, and delivered to you. Where else are you going to find that? It's a hard asset. You can put it in the bank and you can hold on to it. You can take delivery of it. You can put it in storage with us. But right now, we think that the value of silver is so far undervalued in comparison to just gold alone that there's going to be a reckoning of sorts, which will take silver over $100 an ounce in the near term.
Yeah, it's interesting. And again, to reiterate, the show is called Hard Money, and we're talking about silver as a hard asset. We're not talking paper, hypothecated silver. We're talking physical. As you said, you can physically hold this silver and throw it around in your hand. It's kind of cool, and that's what we're talking about here. If you haven't explored this avenue yet, it might be something you want to pick up with Darren and the rest of his team. Again, to reach out anytime to Delta Harbor 1-888-335-8645 and deltaharbor.com. That's Harbor with the U. Now, investors is where we're going to lead next. They're also buying silver and gold. Who are these investors? I mean, there's just plain simple shirt guys like me who know you, so I already have some education. But the hardcore guys, who are they?
Well, with the relatively small supply available to the marketplace, John, there are a handful of notable investors that have pushed this agenda further. In the time since I've been in this marketplace, there are, give or take, around about less than, let's say, 2% of the entire world which has exposure to silver. And if we look at people who have bought silver, Warren Buffett has bought silver, Bill Gates has owned silver. Now, they have owned physical and paper. Ray Dalio, the largest hedge fund manager in the world, gold and silver, loves it. Carlos Slim, the famous Mexican billionaire. These are people who have come along and tried and will try to duplicate maybe what the Hunt brothers did back in the 70s. A lot of people know that story. They tried to corner the market. The problem is, nowhere in the world can you go right now and find that mass of silver available. We're going to talk in the next segment a little bit about the supply right now, where it's coming from, and how liquid we can keep this for our clients relative to the available supply that's out there. But ultimately, there's very little supply at a time when the demand is peaking. It's the highest it's ever been. It's going higher on the spectrum, and it's doubled in comparison to when I started 17 years ago. So if this gets 4, 5, 6, 7% higher, and the average Canadian starts buying this product, we're going to talk about ways that they are going to maximize the return on their wealth, insure their wealth, and save a ton of time and effort trying to get something that's paper when they could have the real physical asset in gold and silver. We'll do that when we come back.
You bet. And again, if you're not familiar with hard assets of this type, you may have an RSP, you may have a TFSA. You want to look at it from a different angle. This might be the angle you want to choose. Hard assets, physical metals, silver, and gold. We'll continue that conversation. Darren, short break here. You want to reach out. In the meantime, keep this number 1-888-335-8645, deltaharbor.com. We'll continue. This is Hard Money right here on News Talk Sauga 960. All right, welcome back. Hard Money by Delta Harbour Assets. We are talking hard money. We're talking hard assets, silver, gold, and the like. There's so much more to discuss in the coming weeks, Darren. You want to reach out any time to get a hold of Darren and his crew, 1-888-335-8645, deltaharbor.com. That's Harbor with a U, of course, because we're on this side of the border, and that's how we spell it. Harbor with you, deltaharbor.com. The silver, the hard silver, people want to get this asset in their portfolio. It could be TFSA, it could be something they store with you guys, Darren. But how does the new investor, what's his starting point as far as getting some of that in his portfolio?
Well, this might be a good time to talk a little bit about the brand. Delta Harbor as a company values, among all other things in their relationship with every client, a service that we can bring to them. And we value it so much so that it's the mission we have. It's the very thing that's at the core of who we are as a company. It's to go out of our way to make sure that you understand what you're buying, to understand how it works, how to store product, what happens if you take it home, the pros and cons of every side of it, and to make certain 100% that you have liquidity like any other investments. Gold and silver should not be considered an asset that's hard to hold, that's hard to transport. Those days are long gone. This is as easy as paper. And when it comes to physical gold and silver, John, we just simply suggest that going to the website, you have the option to set up a consultation. You can call us directly to do it. But in that 10 or 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever you need to get comfortable, we will relate to you all of the ideas we have and how easy it is to hold product. We'll talk about different types of product, gold and silver, coins, bars, the different prices of each product, and how we get to that final price. And we'll expose everything we can about the silver and gold markets that we know to date with our cumulative experience that will hopefully put new investors at ease give them some sense that they are in a spot where they are surrounded by our expertise, and the value that we bring forward is essentially going to be there every step of the way with you. If you hold silver and gold, you want to buy it through Delta Harbour as something to have in your portfolio. Like John said, we can help you to put it in a TFSA and keep it tax-free. We can put it into an RSP and use that shelter. That's easy to do as well. We have partners set up to do that. If you want to just take direct delivery, we can set you up with a quote for silver and gold. You set up your account, make your deposit, and spend the money however you see fit. And if you'd like to store with us, we have a storage vault that is insured. It's IROC certified. And of course, it makes it easy for you as an investor to view your product, to see what you're holding, and have the product account in your name. It's not like an ETF or some paper alternative where you think you own gold or silver, or you got to spend an exorbitant amount to acquire any of your holdings. If you want to buy 1 ounce, sure, you can start with 1 ounce. If you want to start with 10,000 ounces of silver, you can start with that too. We can accommodate any level of investor, and our consultation process is one that I think is extremely professional. We're talking about something that doesn't have to be reinvented. We're not recreating the wheel here, John. It's a simple thing, and people should know that they're finding true value in hard assets, and that's where they're at. It's much easier than owning a house. I've owned several of them. We'll talk about the difference as we go on and have experts on with real estate. I got lots of pros and cons, by the way, with real estate right now, but it's a hard asset, and it's much easier to own than most other hard assets, and you can enjoy it. You can see it, touch it, hold it. It's tangible, hold in your hand wealth. It should be part of your portfolio. If you want to be in stocks, bonds, cash, that's up to you and the professionals you trust, but you can hold this very undervalued asset that has a ton of room to grow in silver, and you can accompany that with gold, a metal that has absolutely gets all the headlines but has equal amount of value, and silver and gold can be held together in a portfolio.
Again, reaching out is 1-888-335-8645. Rather, deltaharbor.com is how you reach out to Darren and the crew. Get educated, get some physical metal in your hand, gift it. I mean, give some to your kids every year at Christmas or a birthday or whatever. It's a good place to start, and they'll start to learn the actual physical value of money as well when they can see it and hold it in their hands. It's got some good weight to it as well, so that might be a cool thing to do. Now, beyond supply and demand, what are other factors, Darren, that have seen this 500% rise in the bull market for silver anyway?
Well, what's taking it up there is the same 4 fundamentals. I mean, back in 2004, I wrote about this in what I used to have called the Precious Metals Advisor back then. Right. I wrote about the 4 fundamentals, and I did it once in a long drawn out article that was just for our clients. And then clients came back and said, well, okay, just a minute, you have to blow this up. This is the cornerstone of why we're here, why we find ourselves in this situation. And we've already talked about supply and demand. It's sensitive. There is no product available. You can't, as a large investor, hope to put $1 million+ into the market and get your product that minute. You have to order it. It has to be made. There has to be some timeline involved in that. And that's what it's become right now, because we are awakening the senses of the mainstream in terms of what is of value. And they're finding out right now, as we're taping this show, that these hard assets are assets which have not been owned enough in portfolios. And so supply and demand plays a huge role in that. But the other things that we talk about are the fact that you can't go through the last decade and a half like we have in Canada and the US with the printing presses turned on, with this massive, gigantic elephant in the room, and not talk about it. I mean, we've basically printed ourselves to death. And if we look at here in Canada in the last year and a bit, the headlines, John, as you all know, they've all been about how people are saving money, how we're going to get out of this COVID situation, how when we do, people are going to have this appetite to go out and spend.
Yeah.
And it's being juxtaposed by things like what Global News brought to the air this week in an article talking about how as much as 50% of all Canadians are under $500 away from insolvency.
Yeah,
and I mean, you can't have that juxtaposition, and they both have an equal role to play without realizing we're in big trouble. We've spent a lot of money, way more than we could afford to spend. Our taxes are going higher. The stock markets are near a top. They're far more frothy now and closer to a top than they've ever been. And if you sit here and listen to the show and think that the stock market's going to double in value, well, keep your money there. But if, like me, you want a little extra insurance, you have to spread that wealth around a bit. And so we talk about inflation, we talk about money printing, we talk about geopolitics, John, which over the years has meant that we have to enter in discussions about why gold and silver are owned by central banks, which is war, which is sanctions, which is sovereign debt in other parts of the world. We've just gone through a massive financial crisis since 2008, which I don't think has been cured. And ultimately, we're talking about something that's going to be with us for some time to come. And now we throw COVID in the mix. And ultimately, we have to protect ourselves. We have to look for different ways to put value in our long-term wealth, and having gold and silver and other hard assets is one way to do that. But those four fundamentals are the key. They drive everything that we discuss and talk about and write about at Delta. That's, money printing, inflation, geopolitics, and supply and demand.
We got a break in about a minute, Darren, but I want to at least touch on this. You mentioned off the top, and that would be the ratio of gold to silver. Now, there's a kind of a standard, or there used to be kind of a standard number where they sit. And this is why you've mentioned in the past that silver is so attractive, because that ratio is really out of whack. That's why it's so attractive. Give me a little bit of a detail on that before we break.
Well, let's do it. I mean, we were at 16 to 1 for 1,000 years. It means you had 16. Basically, the reason that ratio existed since Roman times is because gold was coming out of the ground 16 times less than silver. They were finding on average 16 ounces of silver to every 1 ounce of gold. And so that ratio stood in place until about 1980. And if you look at the way the monetary system has developed over time, we've got a ratio that's way out of whack. So again, let's come back to that in the next segment, because that ratio is a key ingredient as to why I love silver and gold so much, why we can make so much money from it as investors. And the ratio right now, you'll be amazed to see where it's at. We'll talk about that when we come back.
And that's where we will pick it up here on Hard Money. Reaching out in the meantime, I keep giving you the number. You'll get it in your memory. So will I eventually, right? 1-888-335-8645 is that number. DeltaHarbor.com to have a chat with Darren, come at things from a different angle, expand your portfolio, and get into some hard assets. We'll continue. This is Hard Money on News Talk Sauga 960. We are back. Thank you for hanging around. This is Hard Money by Delta Harbour Assets, reaching out, getting hard assets in your portfolio, or at least making that phone call, getting educated, coming at it from a different angle, and expanding your investment horizons. If that's all you want to do, that's good. Start there and call Darren and his team. They'll take care of you, have a nice lengthy chat, and put your mind at ease and educate you at the same time. It's 1-888-335-8645, deltaharbor.com. That's Harbor with you, deltaharbor.com to begin. Darren, we left off the last segment talking about the ratio of gold to silver. Standard for years, for decades, for hundreds of years was 16 to 1. So 16 pieces of silver for every one piece of gold. That has dramatically changed, which is why it is so attractive to look at silver now. Give me some more details on that, where we left off.
Well, that silver ratio alone for experts in the arena of precious metals, when they're dealing with investments in gold and silver, can be the sole source of technical analysis that they use to make decisions based on how much gold to silver they're going to own, or when they're going to buy silver, or maybe sell the position. Same for gold. For years upon years upon years, during this bull market that started back in 2002, we drove home this idea that the ratio of silver to gold is going to, over time, creep back down to its original 16 to 1, where it should be, ratio that was there forever. And I'm starting to think now, John, although when we first started getting to know each other a decade ago, we were doing other radio shows, I used to think that ratio would come back. I think it's going to flip in our lifetimes. In fact, I think that silver is, at some point in our lifetimes, going to become more valuable than gold.
No kidding.
And it's just a fact of what's available out there and what the reality is. And the reality is that people think of silver as jewelry. They think of something they might put on their spouse's toe, or a ring or a set of earrings. People can't afford to buy gold, so they buy silver. And this is the way that silver's got a bad rap over the years. People have treated it with a total lack of respect. It's been used by companies hand over fist, and in that whole journey, even since 2002, when I started getting into this market, the ratio between gold and silver is the closest it's ever come is 33 to 1. Jeez, and that was back in 2011. But the good news is in that first major cycle, and now we're here in a second cycle at the very bottom, the start of a new cycle, there were 4 peaks in that market: 2004, 2006, 2008, 2011. And in each of those peaks, gold and silver moved in tandem, but silver was the winner. Percentage-wise, silver beat gold hand over fist. Some of those moves in the hundreds and hundreds of percent from bottom to top in the span of less than 12 months. And so that ratio tightened in 2011 to 33 to 1. Now, when that huge move in silver came along, there are other parts of the marketplace that pertain to paper movements that we talk about behind the scenes, that we discuss with clients, that put pressure on pricing. And so when you see those big, gigantic rallies, of course, whatever moves up in price sometimes gets sold down. And so silver, again, undervalued. And more recently, in the last 3 years, that ratio jumped to as high as 125 to 1. Right now, as we tape the show today, it's 69 to 1, meaning that silver, even on average during this whole bull market, should be closer to 50 to 1, which means the price of silver should be in the mid to high 30s right now as we speak. So again, complete value right there. But I mean, it's part of what we do at Delta. We look at these, we try to find this value, we bring it to our client base. I mean, the goal here is to make as much wealth return for clients as possible. To get them as educated as much as possible. And when you're looking for undervalued assets, it's the most undervalued asset in the face of the earth, silver, that is. So that ratio, John, so important. And as it comes back closer to 16 to 1, you're going to see both metals moving higher, but ultimately you've got a lot on the go for silver right now.
Let's talk a little bit about the nasty I word, inflation. How does that relate with what's happening with silver and gold? For that
well, it's certainly a headline that we've dealt with more recently in Canada. I certainly would look no further than building supplies. I mean, we've got a frothy real estate market right now. And again, I'll make no qualms about it. If people go to our website, they're going to see I'm not always the biggest proponent of real estate. You've got to be very smart. You have to be educated. And I would almost say now that people buying real estate, especially as an investment, should be educated. They should understand real estate. They should have a professional approach to it and lots of disposable income, because what's happened in this marketplace is that many of the hard assets we rely on to make wealth, generate wealth, are getting near very big tops, real estate being one of them. And ultimately, inflation plays a role in developing that, because what Canada, the US, all the G20 nations have done is they've essentially allowed artificial interest rates to stay in place for very long periods of time. Monetary policy dictates that they will stay very low, but at the same time, they've been printing money hand over fist. So I look always to the US to explain this example. It took hundreds of years, up until the point that Bush Jr. left office and Obama came into office, to build a monetary base of roughly $800 billion in the US. From Obama through Trump and now to Biden, what took hundreds and hundreds of years to make, in the span of literally 13 years, they've taken from 800 billion in floating currencies, either digital or physical, and they've moved that to $5.2 trillion. It's the most inflationary thing they could have ever done long term. But because interest rates have stayed so low, inflation hasn't set in. That money hasn't hit the ground. It hasn't hit infrastructure. It hasn't hit new projects. It hasn't hit small business growth. And we've been, bashed over the head with one after another problem. Now, the most recent being COVID, and all of this money printing. And I look no further than Canada, $400 to $500 billion in the last year alone, plus the new budget coming out at the end of April, mid-April. We are going to be in the thick of it. And traditionally, historically, John, during periods of inflation, when things get more expensive, and they are, look at building supplies, food, look at everything that we buy and put our hands on day to day. When that happens, historically, gold and silver have taken off dramatically. Silver in the 70s, in the last big bull market, massive run up higher. What happened during that period? We had major inflation, major money printing, and that hand in hand went with the pricing, which in silver was up over 3,000%, gold up over 3,000% in 10 years. And most of that move came from the middle point of that decade on. we could be 90 days away, 100 days away, we could be 20 days away from seeing that kind of thing happen here. But make no mistake about it, as far as inflation is concerned, we're going to experience a big bout of it. You have to have hard assets like gold and silver in your portfolio as a mechanism to offset what is potentially getting too difficult or hard to make money from. And that's your stocks, bonds, even real estate to a certain extent. You got to have something to protect yourself and offset those possible breaking points. And that's silver and gold. So when we come back, we'll talk more about that. And maybe we can do a little summary of the show.
You bet we sure will. In the meantime, stick around, write down the number and reach out to Darren and the rest of the Delta Harbor crew, 1-888-335-8645, deltaharbor.com. That's Harbor with a U, deltaharbor.com. We'll continue. More hard money is on the way. News Talk Sauga 960. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to Hard Money by Delta Harbour Assets. Hope you've enjoyed the last almost an hour. We're going to be doing this every week, so there's lots to learn, lots for you to glean from the show every week when it comes to hard assets. It could be gold, it could be silver, it could be other metals. It's going to be the physical variety. That's what we're talking about here, and we'll get to more of that as the weeks to come. But the phone number, anytime to start the education and to start investing, for that matter, you got room in RSPs, TFSAs. Darren and the guys will show you how to do it. 1-888-335-8645, deltaharbor.com. Again, Harbor with a U, online to check it out. Let's just get through some broad strokes here, Darren, in the last 10 minutes of the show and recap what we talked about. And then we'll get into why Delta Harbor is the place to be, right? So take it away, pal.
Well, John, here we are. I mean, new show, new audience, exciting time. We're talking about gold and silver today. That's our mainstay. That's where our expertise lies. It's at the heart of what we do at Delta, and it's something that we're very comfortable with. So today's show was basically just a 101. Get acquainted with the idea of silver and gold, the fundamentals. We talked about money printing, inflation. We talked about geopolitics, and we talked about supply and demand. All of those things create a perfect storm right now for precious metals. The price of silver on paper trading around $25, gold in and around the 1750 mark, and both metals looking to have very big years in the next 36 months. Both metals looking to climb dramatically, both presenting excellent opportunity for you to have at least a conversation with Delta about balancing out your wealth. And, you know, obviously at the end of the day, you have to make the right decision for you as an investor. You have to seek the advice of the people you trust the most, speak with the experts that are in your life about balance and diversification. But you're looking at two very undervalued assets. And today, John, we picked on silver because ultimately it is still and has been for a very long time my favorite metal of all of them. It's underrepresented. There's not much of it on the face of the earth. It's used in almost everything that we put into our daily lives, from electronics to clothing. We barely even scratch the surface on clothing. It's in sweat wicking technology. It's in washers, dryers, refrigerators, cars, switches. I mean, cell phones, everything that we touch, silver is in it. And that makes it very hard for manufacturers not to continue buying droves of silver long term, especially if we get another boom in the economy. And then we obviously talked about when that boom might happen. We know things are frothy right now. And John, will talk over the next few weeks, bring some experts on to the show to discuss real estate in particular. It's one of interest for me, since obviously things are getting way out of control in Ontario. But we are an economy that is changing. Right now, as we said in the show earlier, Global came out. We'll post that article on our social realm with statements saying that as much as 50% of Canadians are less than $500 away from insolvency. Yeah. And whether it's true or not, it's a scary thing to have to consider. You know, what is your plan? What do you have in your back pocket? And all we're saying is that if you're able to invest and you're putting money into these markets, you should ideally be having some buffer, something to ensure your wealth that's tangible, and it's what we do. So that's ultimately where we are for today's show, and it's easy to get in touch with us. As you know, the website's easy to get to. It's a comfortable website to navigate, and you can call us directly.
I think it's interesting, too. You mentioned about having professionals on your team to do it the right way. And I think when it comes to physical assets of this nature, this is no different, because you know, you think, and you and I have worked together for a decade, and it's, you know, things have come and gone, but you've kind of been able to steer the ship in the same lane for the longest time. But I don't think there's any, in fact, I can probably much guarantee there's nobody listening to this show now that was around when the Spanish flu was here 102, 3 years ago. They are. Well, congratulations. You're pretty old and you've done well. But this is all new to us. This whole COVID-19 thing has shaken everything up to a point where nobody's dealt with this before, ever. So why would you want to go into this sort of asset class without getting hold of someone like you and your team at Delta Harbour, who are educated on how to navigate these waters that we've never seen before, any of us on the planet, and do it alone? You know what I mean? I think it's key as far as dealing with you guys if you're going to make this part of your asset portfolio.
Well, again, I mean, ultimately at Delta, we pride ourselves on service. I mean, people say it all the time, John, but there's a difference between saying it and doing it. We will bend over backwards. You will be able to speak to me directly. I'm not going to pass you off. I want you to know everyone at our firm, the partners in the firm, Robert Stevenson, who's with us today on the show in the background there. We haven't heard much from him, but over the coming weeks, we will. Roy Pinelli, our other partner here, again, quiet in the background today. And we brought the best of three different worlds together from the perspective of the investor who started buying silver and gold from me and then became part of this whole storyline, and from a person who had both those experiences, knew what I was doing, and then also became an investor, but we've known each other for a very long time. So we brought these three minds together to form Delta Harbour Assets. And in doing so, we all wanted to commit to this idea that in everything that we connect with from a service perspective in this day and age, there is a lack of service, real true service. I call somebody nowadays, I'm on the phone sitting for 45 minutes waiting for somebody to get through. It's ridiculous. And that's where we come in with our treatment of clientele. And you'll note in speaking with anybody that's been with Delta so far, how excited they've been to tell other people about what we do. And most often those stories revolve around, I can't believe these guys came and actually physically brought this to me, because they wanted, as a first-time investor, for me to meet them and to get to know them. And yes, it's COVID and we can't be, sitting in an office together. There are many levels of concern that we have about our own economy, John, here and afar. But ultimately, Delta means service. And we want people to understand why you should own these assets. This is why we do these shows and why we put this information out there. And a lot of people are going to ask, well, how do I know gold, silver,
right,
this, that? That's the whole part of the consultation process that we go through. I mean, if you don't have 10 or 15 minutes in your busy life to spend with somebody to talk about your wealth, you're going to end up being like the rest of the people who become very passive. We spoke with a guy today, and I digress for a moment, but this is the state of affairs in Canada. He's had an investment since 2007 with a company that I won't say, a very big company. He's had a planner and advisor with him, and he couldn't tell me a thing about his wealth. He sent me a statement to review and look at, and I'm not his financial planner or advisor, nor do I pretend to be. I just wanted to give this guy some added education about where to find the information, where to get the value of it. And what I realized over the years, and we've talked about this before, John, is that Canadians by far and large are passive. They don't know where their wealth is. Hard assets change that. If I can say to somebody, I own gold, it's not complicated. It's not on paper. It's not a value. There's no, I'm not looking for things, trying to research it all. I own a physical piece of gold. Here's what it looks like. Here's what it feels like. And I know what the value is because I have the guys from Delta. I give them a quick call. They tell me right there and then, what's it worth? Boom, done. And that's what we want to do. We want to bring simplicity back to wealth. It used to be that way. Yeah. It's in the interest of the paper pushers, the banks, the other big firms. It's in their interest to make things complicated because it means you need them. Delta is a return to not needing anyone except for yourself. Use silver and gold. It's our number one recommendation. That's where we think people should be looking. Read the story, find out more about it. It's no longer what it used to be, John. It's not hard to transport. Yes, silver is bulky, it's heavy, but it's easy to store. We are experts in logistics, and Delta Harbour as a brand, it's all about you, the client, and it should be. It should have been that forever. But when you don't hear from anybody that is supposed to be managing your money, or you don't get a phone call from anybody that's supposed to be helping you with your money, you become passive. You bury your head in the sand. And I don't want people to lose money because they weren't thinking. Get into these markets called Delta. We're going to spend a lot of time over the next few weeks. Silver and gold. That's where you should be looking. It's my number one recommendation. And Delta's the place to do it, John. So thanks for having us today. And it's been great. I look forward to doing the show. We're going to be doing it every week. And Lots of expertise. We're going to be able to pick this up on podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, all the streaming platforms that you go to, so you can listen to it anytime. And we'll put it all out there. We have nothing. We wear our hearts on our sleeves. We're going to tell you and show you how to become experts in every single hard asset field that we put out there.
If you have not dipped your toe into hard assets, you've been doing, standard investments with your advisor. Maybe this is something you could awaken them to. Hey guys, why don't we call Delta Harbour and get on board this? Again, it's a physical, tangible asset you can actually hold in your hand, like a Mona Lisa, like a Fabergé egg, like a keys to a classic car. You can do that with gold and silver to start with, and you want to do it as soon as you can. Take advantage of these prices and the fact that there's still some out there to grab and keep it in your own portfolio. So make sure you do that, or at least get educated and give Darren and the guys a call. I'll leave you with a phone number and some contact. 1-888-335-8645 is the number. Again, 1-888-335-8645, and deltaharbor.com, harbor with a U, deltaharbor.com. And we'll catch you next time on Hard Money. This is News Talk Sauga 960.